Is he gonna go? Why are you? There it goes. All right, here we go with another Neca Defenders of the Earth unboxing. It's been a long time since we've done one of these. I have Flash Gordon, I have Mandrake the Magician, I have Lothar, I have Ming the Merciless, and now I have the Phantom. And I've been kind of dragging my feet on getting the Phantom for a few reasons, but the main reason being that I already had the original superheroes version of the Phantom, and I feel like this is a superior figure to the Defenders version. Hi, Aunt June. Welcome to the show. Good to see you as always. So, yeah, I wasn't. I was kind of on the fence if I was even gonna get this figure or not because I'm like, well, I already have the best version of the Phantom. Do I need the rest version of the Phantom? Let's see if I'm right. Let's see if I'm wrong. Let's see how this version of the Phantom compares to the original superheroes version. So, yeah, found him on eBay. Oh no, it's torn at the bottom. Oh no, I take my stuff out of the package anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll cut through the little piece of tape here, and there's not any on the other sides. Let's go ahead and have a look at the box real quick. Here's what the back looks like. We got the cross-cell artwork with Lothar, Mandrake the Magician, Flash Gordon, the Phantom, and Ming the Merciless. And I have all of these figures. I'm guessing this photo was taken before they made Garax, which is the last of the Defenders of the Earth figures that I do not have. It's got a little bio on here, and it says, "The Phantom, ghost who walks. Out of the jungle, the hero who stalks, the beast calling brother, the ghost who walks. Phantom, Defenders of the Earth." Stan Lee wrote the theme song to Defenders of the Earth. He wrote the lyrics to it. I point that out every single time that, that I reference it. So, continuing with the bio, the Phantom is the possessor of the strongest and most unique powers on Earth. He draws upon the ancient secrets and supernatural strengths of his roots in the deep woods. The Phantom's flashes of raw animal power are invaluable in the defense's conquest of evil Ming and his ruthless robot army. Collect the whole world of heroes and villains. And it's got some credits on here, so I'll go ahead and read through those real fast. Product development, Randy Fox. Sculpting, packaging, and photography, Georgie Jokovic. I'm gonna have to find this guy's name on see if he's on YouTube or something and see if he says his name because I always feel like I'm stumbling over it. Fabrication, Anthony Minicino and Roger Fernandez. Paint, John Wardell and Jeffrey Trapp. Prototypes, TrueCast Studios. Character illustration, Georgie Jokovic, and Jack Sy. And let's actually get a look at that character illustration. Very nice, as they usually are on these Defenders of the Earth figures. And I should point out, he does come with Zuffy, the Defenders of the Earth the little goofy cartoon sidekick, which was common in 80s cartoons. You always wanted to have a little goofy sidekick for your heroes to entertain the younger kids. You had Orko and He-Man, and you had Snarf and Thundercats and that sort of thing. It was just kind of par for course. Thankfully, G.I. Joe never really had one. I guess they figured that some of the animal companions that the figures actually came with, Junkyard or Timber or Polly, were close enough. So let's go ahead and open them up, and we can see that there are a number of accessories in here. We've got a couple of extra hands because he's got solid fists on the actual figure, and then he comes with a left gripping hand and another right fist, and there is more to that, which I will talk about. And then we see there are some blast effects and Zuffy and a single blaster. So let's go ahead and get him out of the package. He's got a twist tie around his abdomen, and it is very twisty. So get that off first. I don't see twist ties on action figures very often anymore. And this is an older figure, but it's only like a couple of years older. It came out in I think the first one came out in 2020, and the re-release was not long after that. I'm hoping this is the re-release because the articulation is better in the legs. And I bought it on eBay, so who knows when the person who I bought it from on eBay bought it. But it'll be interesting to look at the older articulation if it is one of the older figures. So, make the best out of whatever situation I got, I guess. And we got some tape here. Let's go ahead and cut through that tape so we can get out these accessories, including Zuffy. Oh, let's go ahead and get the blaster out first. Now, I really like these Defenders of the Earth blasters because it's got this really cool paint on it, which is, if you look at the light in a certain way, you can see it's like a metallic purple, but in another angle, it's like a metallic blue. So I really like that. I kind of feel like that gives it a nice sort of sci-fi feel to it. Always cool to see. And, oh, and we got this other blast effect over here. I have to get that out. So some pew-pews for the laser pistol, and one other thing. I'm getting to it. So here we go. There's the longer blast effect for the pistol. And here is the shorter blast effect for the pistol. We'll set those aside. We'll have a look at those in a little bit. And then the third blast effect we can see has a peg at the end of it. You'll see why. Here's a gripping hand to hold that pistol, and that is the Phantom's left hand. So you can see that it's got the P ring on it, where it's these 4 P's kind of interlocked together. They had said, I'd recently read the Last Phantom comic book, which is about, the last Phantom. Pretty cool. And they'd referred to it as swords on there, which I thought was kind of neat. I never really realized they were swords. I just saw them as P's. And here we go, another fist, and in place of the famous Phantom ring, there's a hole. So you can plug this blast effect with the peg into the fist. So he's blasting a ray out of his skull ring. How cool is that? Now, one thing I notice about these is that the hands are painted flesh color. I don't know what color they're molded in, but the joint underneath, you can kind of see it kind of chipped a little bit here when I moved it, or it wasn't painted at all. It's going to chip because it's a plastic. It doesn't hold paint very well. The paint is that same color purple as the rest of the Phantom suit. So they didn't give this a unique joint, and it's got paint on the actual peg, which that's going to be awkward as far as the articulation goes. And it's all going to scrape off anyway. I'm trying to scrape it off my hand, but it's actually sticking to that plastic pretty well. It usually doesn't stick that well. Now, going back to the Flash Gordon figure, I think the earlier versions of Flash Gordon have that same thing going on, but this one actually does have flesh color at the wrist pegs. So who knows how that's gonna work out. Okay, so here's the Phantom out of the package, and comparing him with the original Superheroes version, you can see there are quite a few differences. So the Defenders version had a much lighter purple, almost lavender, to his suit. And this is accurate to the color that he had on the cartoon series and also the original Galoob action figure from the 80s. They both have pretty similar belts, although you can see that the Defenders version, the belt is much glossier, and it does not have the 2 holsters for the 45s. So he doesn't come with 45s anyway, so what would you even put in those holsters to begin with? They could have given him a holster for the blaster, but I'm guessing the reason they did that is because he didn't have any holsters at all on the cartoon series, nor on the 80s action figure. So they probably were trying to keep accurate to that. The other difference that I notice is that, much like on the cartoon, The Phantom is lacking his blue and black striped trunks. He just has plain purple trunks to match the rest of his purple outfit. And the head sculpts are, of course, the same, and they both have that like kind of light overspray of gray over the chins to give him a little bit of stubble. Although I think that the Defenders version actually has a little more stubble than the Superheroes version, which is interesting. And they both have the same belt buckle. It looks like almost the exact same belt buckle. So they probably based the Phantom's belt and the trunks look the same. This is probably the same sculpt. They just added the holsters to the Superheroes version. So let's go ahead and discuss the articulation a little bit. All right, so the Phantom can look up about that far. He can look down about that far. Tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side. Head rotates all the way around. The arms rotate all the way around to the shoulders, like so. Joints are kind of stiff because it's a brand new figure, and they move up about that far. Seems like they should move up further, but the joints are, like I said, kind of stiff, so I'm not wanting to push them any further than I have to. They're still kind of stiff on the Superheroes version, so maybe that's just about as far as they go. And then, of course, there's a bicep swivel, so the bicep rotates all the way around, but this one seems like it's kind of stuck, so I don't want to mess with it too much. This one rotates all the way around. I'll hit that with a hairdryer later and fix it, but it just seems like it's stuck really good. Oh, I got it loose. I wasn't even trying to. I just putting some light pressure on it was enough to do it. I wasn't even expecting it to move. I was just kind of testing it. And then we have the double jointed elbows, which again seems kind of stiff. So I don't want to take too much of a chance on it. Let's try the other elbow. The great thing about having another figure that's exactly the same as this one, if I do have a thing where like both joints are too stiff for me to move, I can just go back to the Superheroes version and show you on that one. So that's about the range of motion we get at the elbow. You get a pretty cool pose there. Slam evil, just like it said on the poster of the Billy Zane movie. Love that movie, the Billy Zane Phantom movie. So really awesome. If you haven't seen it, check it out. He does have the ab crunch. And again, the ab crunch is really stiff. This is a really stiff figure. So the ab crunch bends down about that far and bends back about that far. So decent range of motion on the ab crunch. Not the best ab crunch I've ever seen, but a decent enough ab crunch. He can turn all the way around to the waist. And I think there's like a little bit of movement from side to side on the waist too, but not a whole lot. Legs can kick up about that far. And of course, it does have that rubber trunk piece, so that does kind of hinder it slightly, but you still get a good range of motion out of it, I think. This looks like it is the, I think it might be the older version. Yeah, this is the older version, because we can see that there are some pins here that I don't believe are on the Superheroes version at all. The Superheroes version was completely pinless. Now, the thing is what I'd heard with this older version is that it can kind of interfere with the leg articulation somewhat. But this leg seems to be moving just fine. It's this leg over here that seems like it's a little stuck. So the legs are kind of jointed together in like a weird sort of way. Like the leg pins on the inside actually are kind of like it's not like a regular action figure joint where on the inside of the pelvis the thighs are usually like flat pegs and they just kind of rotate against each other like this. Instead, for whatever reason, Neca decided to do this. The engineering is just screwy on this. Is the one of the leg pins on the inside has like this female end, and one of the leg pins has this male end. So they kind of fit together and rotate that way, and they just overcomplicated it. Really, is what they did. So that's why this guy is having a hard time with this leg pin. Now, I'd heard from some people that they would take the figure completely apart and clean out some of the paint on the inside, and then it moves just fine. But again, it just seems like it was an overly complicated way to do this, and thankfully NECA did fix this for their later releases of Defenders of the Earth and the original superheroes figures, so those don't have this problem at all. And the other Defenders figures that I have from the first wave, which would be Flash Gordon and Ming the Merciless, even though they're from the first wave, it's the re-release of the first wave. So my Flash and Ming don't have this problem, but my Phantom does. So that is unfortunate. Maybe I can fix it later, but it is one of those examples of something where I'm like, should I have to fix it? No, I really shouldn't have to fix it. And the main problem with that is that now the thighs are supposed to rotate. Like they're supposed to have a rotation like right at the top of the thigh. If you can see that, there's like a separate joint that fits into the thigh. And this is kind of stuck in the position where it is. And if you see how his knees are pointed, he's kind of knock-kneed as far as that goes. So I'd want to twist these a little bit further, but I don't think I'm going to be able to unless I try to hit it with the hairdryer and soften it up a bit. And then I might be able to pop the joint. But, it is what it is. So thankfully, since I have the original superheroes version of Phantom, and that's my preferred version of this figure, it's not that big a deal to me. So I can just have him like stand like normal on the shelf and not really have to worry about getting the articulation too good. And if I've just got him standing like this, I don't think the knock-knee thing is too obvious. It would only really be obvious if, let's demonstrate the knee articulation. If we bend the knees back, oh, that's a stiff joint. There we go. You can see that they're kind of splayed outwards a little bit. So, and he does have double jointed knees, so we'll go ahead and demonstrate that. Very stiff joint. Very stiff joint. I'm not going to even bother with that one anymore. Let's try this one. Oh, man, I think that one's even worse. So that'll be more stuff to hit on the hairdryer. Let's go back to the original superheroes version and compare. Now, I did do a whole video, obviously, on the original superheroes version when I got this a few years back. So it's definitely worth going back and watching that video if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, that's about the range of articulation that we get at the knee. Thanks for helping me out, 21st Phantom. Supposedly the Phantom, of course, in the comic book is a legacy character, and there's been like several generations of the Phantom. And the main Phantom that we had in the comic strip, that's this guy, the guy that Billy Zane played. He is the 21st in the line of the Phantoms. And the one on Defenders of the Earth, which was supposed to take place in the far-off future year of 2015, this version of the Phantom is the 27th Phantom, which to me seems like they've gone through an awful lot of Phantoms in what would be like, a short amount of time, maybe like 80 years, I think, since the 21st Phantom would have started in the 1930s. So, and yeah, well, anyway, let's go back to the articulation. So he does have a boot cut. Boot rotates all the way around. He does have some really nice, shiny, glossy boots, much like how I was talking about how the superheroes version has more of a matte finish on his belt. He also has more of a matte finish on his boots. And I do prefer, actually, one thing I will say that's nicer about the Defenders version versus the superheroes version is I do prefer the glossier boots. Although one thing that I notice is that, again, the joints are purple instead of black, so it's gonna chip up. You can see it's already chipped up somewhat. It would have been much better if they used black on the ankle joint, which original superheroes version did. So basically, like, the first wave of Defenders had some issues with it that they managed to correct in the later releases. And I think overall, like in terms of the quality of the figures, I do think that the original superheroes figures are much higher quality than the first wave of Defenders figures. So if there's any way, if you're interested in buying the Defenders of the Earth figures, and they are great figures, I would recommend that you pick them up if you're fans of these characters. If you can, try to get the second release of Flash and Ming and the Phantom. You will not regret it. Because like now having had versions from both releases in my hands and experimented with them a little bit, I got to say that the leg joints are definitely a lot better on the re-releases. So this is one example where I would say that having the having the second release is probably preferable to having the original release. And I don't care which one's worth more. If one of them, it'd be just because of rarity that's the case. So let's go ahead and look at some of these alternate hands. And now I think the coolest alternate hand that came with our guy is that, well, that's his right hand. I was thinking it was his left hand that was the gripping hand. I don't know why I was thinking that. So he's got a solid fist for the right hand, and he's got. Did I put the other? Yeah, the. So he's got a solid. No, yeah. Okay, so he's got 3 right hands. I was thinking one of these was for the left hand, but I guess I was mistaken. Oh well. So let's go ahead. First, we'll put the blaster hand in there. And it's being a tight fit because it's got that paint on there. When I pull it out, it's probably going to have that probably all that paint's going to come straight off. So let's go ahead and put the blaster in his hand. We can see how that looks. Pretty cool. There he is with the blaster. All right. So there's no alternate left hand. All of his left hands, he's got one left hand, so he's stuck with having a fist for a left hand. So if you want to have him hold a gun, it has to be in the right hand. But the coolest of these extra hands, see, look at all that paint that came off of there, and then we've got this purple wrist joint. See, I told you all that was going to come off. This kind of plastic never holds paint, so I'm going to try to chip more of it off because I don't want it to, get clogged up in his wrist hole. And you can see that there's just like paint all stuck on the inside of his wrist. If we can get that off. So I don't even want too much of that. So the coolest one, like I said, is this one with the ray coming out of the ring. Because he's got the 4th skull. And of course, the opening credits of the series shows him blasting the ray out of the ring and stabbing Ming on the hand with it, leaving the skull mark on there. Pretty cool. So there we go. I recreated it with the figures. So there we go. Don't fall over, Ming. I'm trying to shoot a video. I don't need you clattering over and making a lot of noise. Now, since it is just a hole in his hand, when you take out the ray, you're probably just going to leave the ray in there. So, but that would be a cool way to display it. So, unfortunately, not an extra gripping hand for this guy, which I wish there was for the left hand, because I do have an extra, as you would wind up with these, having some extra ray guns, because Mandrake came with a ray gun, and that makes sense because the original Mandrake figure, the Galoob Mandrake figure from the 80s, it did come with that ray gun, but I'm not going to use a ray gun with Mandrake. It's just, he doesn't need one. Flash Gordon needs a ray gun. Lothar, I don't think Lothar really ever used a ray gun in the original comic strip either, but he looks cool with his ray gun. It makes sense that he has got a ray gun. Plus, Lothar also had a holster. He's got a holster to carry his ray gun. So I like having, the holster on there. Phantom. you, should, you need a holster too for your ray gun. But let's go ahead and look at the blast effects for that because we haven't done that yet. So, and of course, this blast effect has a hole in there which fits over the barrel of the blaster. So there he is, blasting at evil. And he's gonna shoot Ming again because Ming is the only bad guy that I have. If I had General Garrix, I suppose I could alleviate Ming of some of his suffering. But sorry, Ming, you're the only bad guy in this line that I have, so you're just gonna get shot. I suppose I could have him shoot one of the other Mings that Neca made. I've got this guy handy, so I can have him shoot the one from the movie 2-pack, which is basically a repaint of the Defenders of the Earth version of Ming. Anyway, and then that came off too easy. And then we have a smaller blast effect, so it can just look like he's firing a little bolt out of there, so you don't necessarily need the whole ray. So I do wish that he had that extra left hand because for the gripping, because then I could have him holding I could have him holding 2 blasters, so I could use this extra blaster that I have. And I think the Phantom should be dual wielding blasters at all times. And it's not the exact same blaster as I look at it, but it's close enough that I think it would fit. The thing that I notice is, and again, I guess this is because this is the first release one, is you can see the difference in the barrels. Is that the barrel on the first release version is much more thin and delicate, and they thickened it up for the second release. It doesn't seem to be holding those blast effects very well either, because it just fell right off. And it fell on the floor, so I better make sure I pick it up, because this looks like it'd be something very painful to step on. So yeah, this being a first release figure, I think it would be less common than the second release. I believe there are more made of the second release. So in terms of rarity, I guess you could say it's more desirable than the re-release, but in terms of quality, the re-release is far superior. So if you can in any way determine which one you get, I would say try to get the re-release version rather than the first release version, and it will spare you some annoyance that way. Other than that, he's still a really cool figure. Like there are some problems with him, all obviously, but the paint apps are really good. The articulation's really good, except for on the hips, where it's that weird engineering that, like I said, they abandoned it. So if you get one of the later releases, it won't have that. But great figure of the Phantom. I love the head sculpt. It looks a lot like I think Cy Berry was the name of the artist who was drawing the Phantom in the 50s and 60s, and gave him a very distinctive face. I think I've mentioned before, even though I love Billy Zane as the Phantom, I do think that Liam Neeson kind of more resembles the character with that kind of hawk-like nose and the general shape of the face. He looks a lot like Liam Neeson. So maybe they should have tried to cast him as the Phantom at some point. But I think he was already getting Oscars for Schindler's List at that point, so he might have been a little more expensive than Billy Zane. I'm just saying. So pretty cool figure. Glad to have him in my collection finally. There's one more thing we got to talk about though before we're finished, and that's Zuffy, and he just fell right out. So let's have a look at Zuffy. You can find on YouTube the original pitch for Defenders of the Earth. There's like a promo pitch film. I think you look it up as Pitch Pilot, and that's how you get a hold of it. And you'll find there are some differences between the show as it was in that early stage of production and when it was actually made. And I think that originally they just called him Fuzzy, but they probably decided Fuzzy was just too generic a name, so just switch it around a little bit. Now he's Zuffy. So there we go. Also, another interesting thing about that pilot is that originally they were going to have Jeddah be Flash Gordon's daughter. So it would have been Jeddah Gordon. And I think that kind of makes more sense because, Flash Gordon, Jetta. That makes more sense for Flash Gordon's daughter, don't you think? And that instead of Rick Gordon, we would have had Kit Walker, the next generation of Phantom, who's training to take his father's spot. I think it probably would have worked better that way, if I'm being honest about it. But Zuffy is not what you might expect to be just like a slug figure, like, say, the Batmite from McFarlane's New Adventures of Batman. He actually has some articulation to him. So let's go over this articulation a little bit. So the head rotates all the way around, and it does seem to be on a bit of a ball joint. So you can, make it kind of cock his head from side to side, like I like to do. He can look up about that far. He can look down about that far. It's not the most articulation, but look how tiny this guy is, and they actually fit this much articulation into him. His arms rotate all the way around at the shoulders, and they also have a hinge, so the arms can move up about that far and rest down into sides, like so. He's got an articulated tail that also is on a bit of a ball joint, so you can move this tail around any which way. And the legs, again, are on kind of a ball joint. This is really good articulation for such a tiny little guy. Thanks for the review. He looks great. Have a good day. Well, you're welcome, MHD. You're always welcome to stop by. I'm always glad to see you. So yeah. Zuffy was in the show. He was the kind of the sidekick to Mandrake's adopted son. Which I'm drawing a blank on that kid's name right now. Keefe or something. I don't know. It's I'm drawing a blank on his name. I'm sorry, but yeah, he was like the kid's sidekick because he was the youngest of the kids. They had the 4 kids on there of the 4 main heroes. So you had Rick Gordon, the son of Flash Gordon. You had Jetta Walker, the daughter of the Phantom. You had LJ, aka Lothar Jr. Guess whose son Lothar Jr. was? And then you had the kid that was the adopted son of Mandrake, and he was kind of like the the baby of the group. So and then he had his own sidekick, which was this little guy. So pretty cool. I think honestly, it was probably worth me picking up the figure just to get Zuffy. Cool to see the articulation on a little, isn't it though? Because like I was really expecting this guy was just going to be a slug, like he was just going to be like a solid figurine with no articulation whatsoever, maybe be able to turn his head. But no, they went all out on this guy. Like I don't think you could fit more articulation onto a figure like this. Maybe some knees and elbows, but like I don't know if or maybe something at the wrists or something, but I don't know if it really would have added more to it at that point. So Zuffy is really cool. I'm glad to have Zuffy. Zuffy is worth the price of admission. So if you've got the original superheroes version of the Phantom and you're already thinking, well, this is the definitive version of the Phantom, I don't really need that, or I don't really need the Defenders version at all. No, you need him because you need Zuffy. So just try to sell the figure on eBay if you feel like you don't need him, and just keep Zuffy. Or maybe you can find somebody selling Zuffy on. I saw somebody selling Zuffy on there for like I think like $7 or $8. He's probably worth it, if you want to do that. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for the Ghost Who Walks, and his little furry little pal. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like and subscribe. All the fun YouTube stuff down below. Let me know what you think about the Phantom, both the character in general and this figure specifically. And I think most people would agree with me. Let me know in the comments if you have both of these, which one you think is the superior version of the Phantom. Like I said, I am firmly in the camp of the original superheroes version is still the definitive figure. But I'm glad to have both of these actually, since they are technically supposed to be two different characters. What with this one being the 21st Phantom and this one being the 27th Phantom. So pretty cool to have. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.